All right, guys, I wanted to go ahead and make a video lesson on blood types. So at this point, we've completed the form, which was a guided inquiry into how blood types work, but now I'm going to go ahead and go over it with you guys with some visuals. So the first terminology that you need to know is the difference between antibodies and antigens. So in the time of COVID, I think most people are actually familiar now with antibodies. Woohoo, one term that I don't have to teach. So antibodies are produced in your immune system, and they are meant to recognize a foreign cell. So something that your body does not recognize and attach to that antigen. Now, a lot of people use the word attack, which is not always the case. Sometimes the antibody is just going to attach to it just to signal, like, here it is, so that there are parts of your immune system that can destroy it. Okay, so the antigen is the actual protein on the cell. Okay, so it's recognized by the immune system. So each antibody recognizes a specific antigen. So for example, this is shown here with this like curved shape right here. That fits, when you look at all these antigens, this antibody specifically fits the A. Okay, it wouldn't fit the D or the E. So this is just a model. It's not exactly what they look like, but they do have a structure that is similar to the structure of the antigen. Okay, so there are 4 basic blood types. We're just going to focus on A, B, and O, but there is a system with the Rh factors, and that would be whether somebody is like A positive or O negative, but we're just going to focus on ABO. So type A blood is shown right here. So these are red blood cells, and they are shown with antigens. Now, these are a model. This is not what antigens look like, but it's a representation. So here we show an A antigen as a little green triangle. Okay, so if you have type A blood, you have A antigen. So the green triangle is the A antigen. Type B blood has B antigens. Okay, so all these little circles represent B. So you'll notice that here, if you're type AB blood, you have those A antigens. They both have the green triangle, and you have the blue circles, which is the B antigens. So type AB has both A and B antigens on the surface. Type O, which is actually known in some countries as type 0, which actually makes more sense because it has no antigens on the surface. Okay, so those are going to be our models. So type A blood has A antigens, type B blood has B antigens, type AB has A and B. So their names, blood types are named after the type of antigen, okay, with the exception of type O. So think O as in 0. Okay, so let me move my screen here. So antibodies are produced by the immune system. They attach to antigens on the surface of the cell. In this case, we're focusing on blood cells. So in the age of COVID, the antibodies we're hoping for being able to produce would be to attach to the coronavirus. So antibodies are going to be produced for the opposite of your blood type. Okay, you don't want to be producing antibodies against your own blood. Okay, so if you look here, we've got antibody A and antibody B. So blood type A has antigen A, and you see it has this triangle shape. So which one of these antibodies would be able to attach to that? The answer would be antibody A. See how they have the same shape. Okay. So if you have type A blood, you would not want to have this antibody in your system, right? Because your antibodies would attach to your own blood and kill you. Okay, and notice I'm using the word attach, not attack. Okay, it's not an attack, it's an attachment. So if you have type A blood, you don't have these antibodies in your body. That would be bad. Okay, you produce the opposite antibody to what you have. So if you have type A blood, you produce B antibodies. Okay, you produce antibodies for the opposite kind of blood type, right? So you wouldn't want to have antibodies for your antigen because you would die. What would happen is these would attach to the blood. It would cause agglutination, which would mean the blood would all clump up because all those antibodies are stuck to it. So that would be a big problem. Okay. And that's why it's important to know what kind of blood people have when you give them a transfusion. Okay, so this person makes antibody B, so if you give them type B blood, their antibodies are going to attach to it. Okay, so here is type B blood. So it has B antigens on it. So when you look at the antibodies, which one of these would attach to the type B blood? Well, antibody B is shown with the same shape. Okay, so antibody B attaches to antigen B. Okay. So what kind of antibodies does this person make in their body? Well, you have to make the opposite. Okay, you make the opposite antibodies for the antigens that you have. If you made the same ones, again, you would die. So someone with type B blood makes antibody A. Okay, so they can't get A blood in their system because their antibodies would attach to it and cause agglutination, which would clog up your blood vessels. Okay, your blood wouldn't be able to freely flow if it's clotting up. Okay, so this is somebody that has type A B blood. So they have A antigens and B antigens. So if you make the opposite antibody for what you have on your cell surface, this person couldn't have antibody A because then their antibodies would attach to their own blood cells. And you can't make antibody B because those would also attach to your blood cells. So somebody with type AB blood doesn't have any antibodies. Okay. If they had the antibodies, then they would have a problem. So you can see here that both of those would attach to the antigen and cause agglutination or clumping. Somebody with type O blood does not have any antigens. So if you make the opposite antibodies for what you have, well, this one's got none. So in this scenario, someone with type O blood is going to make both antibody A and antibody B. This is important because in blood transfusions, if we don't know someone's blood type, we don't want to give them the wrong blood and then their antibodies attach to the blood and cause this person to die, hemolysis. So we usually give people type O blood because it doesn't have any antigens on it. So then that person wouldn't have their antibodies attaching to it. But it's also important to note that if you have type O blood, if you get type A blood or type B blood, then your antibodies are going to attach to it. So someone with type O blood, which is actually me, I make both antibody A and I make antibody B. Okay, so let's do a recap. Okay, so if you're type AB blood, you're called AB because you have A and B antigens. You make the opposite antibodies for what antigens you have. Otherwise, you would die. So in this case, since they have A and B antigens, they can't have any antibodies because the A or the B antibodies would attach to them. Someone with A blood, again, would have A antigens. That's how they're named. And you make the opposite antibodies for what you have on your blood cells. So they have B. Okay. And so on. So type B blood is called type B blood because it has B antigens. It makes you make the opposite antibodies. And so that means that they have A antibodies. If you're type O blood, think of it as 0. You don't have any antigens. Okay. And since you make the opposite, then you would have both A and B antibodies. So when you look at the blood typing, who can you give blood to? So if you have AB blood, they can give to AB, but they can receive blood from anybody because they don't have any antibodies. Their antibodies won't attach to any of these. So they can receive, they are called the universal recipients. They can receive blood from anyone because they don't have any antibodies. On the other hand, type O would be considered the universal donor because it doesn't have any antigens, right? So even though, say, someone with type A has B antibodies, it's not going to attach to anything on type O. If you make A antibodies, it's not going to attach to type O. So they're considered the universal donor. However, they can only receive blood from type O because they have both antibodies. So if they got type A blood, their antibodies would attach to it. If they had type B blood, if they were given type B blood, then their antibody B would attach to it. Same with if they were given type AB blood, their antibodies would attach to it and it cause agglutination.